My name is Laura Riguro, and I'm the Partnerships and Community Lead here at FIT, and I am a certified international trade professional. I would like to acknowledge and give thanks for the opportunity to join you today from the unceded territory and homeland of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. Wherever you are, please take a moment to recognize and respect the ancestral custodians, nations, and peoples who lived on these lands long before any settler, each with their own unique culture, language, and history. So I invite all of you to drop any questions you might have in the Q&A box throughout this 30-minute session. We will reserve, and yes, it is a 30-minute session. We will reserve the last 5 minutes or so just to answer your questions. So please drop them in the Q&A box. You can see on the screen, we have a guest speaker for today, and that's Marci Kobe. But I am going to introduce more of an introduction to follow. But for now, I was just going to dive into a little bit of content from our Global Value Chain course from our FITTskills training, just to introduce today's topic. So Marci, if you allow me, I'm going to share my presentation first.
Sure.
So you might have to stop sharing. There we go. Okay, so if you signed up for Customs Uncovered, Streamlining Complexities and Best Practices for Global Success, you are in the right spot. As I mentioned, it's going to be half an hour, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking. I do want to let Marci do most of the talking today and your questions as well. So what our live learning series is, if this is the first time you're joining, it's once a month, the last Tuesday of the month. We talk about any topic related to international trade, trending topics, those coming from the headlines, or topics suggested by our community. So after the event, we typically send out a survey and we ask for suggested topics for future events. So please, if there's something you're really interested in hearing about, we suggest that you add that to the survey. And we will invite an expert who has, as I have here, lived it, learned from it, made mistakes, learned from mistakes, learned from maybe other people's mistakes. So that's the way this half an hour will roll. Content from today's presentation or today's event is taken from our FITTskills training, and in particular, the Global Value Chain course. And all rights are reserved. In the headlines, we've heard a lot about, obviously Trump tariffs, tariff complexities, customs nightmares, and it's not just in Canada, the United States, and North America. Also, I have a headline here from Norway, Norwegian customs nightmares. Everybody around the world, if they're trading goods right now, they're very concerned about customs issues, tariffs, customs, clearing products through borders, etc. So that's why today we're just going to run over the shipping and transportation basics, touch a little bit on Incoterms, the document flows, best practices, and this is where I will pass it over to Marci to talk a little bit about best practices, and she will be sharing her tips and insights from the perspective of a customs broker. So shipping and transportation includes all of these things, preparing documentation for the goods to be shipped, packaging, transporting the goods to the point of departure for the carrier, clearing goods through customs, and transportation of the goods to the final destination point. These are the players involved. Some of the players involved, carriers, freight forwarders, customs brokers, and that's why I've highlighted this today, because we're going to be looking at a lot of these complexities from the perspective of a customs broker and what it takes to move your goods through the borders seamlessly, hopefully. And then I see Marci smiling here. We always have to talk about Incoterms. I know last month as well, I touched on Incoterms, and our guest also talked about Incoterms when we're looking at procurement. But I'm sure, Marci, you will talk about Incoterms when you talk about share your insights. But understanding, if you are somebody that is trading goods and you don't understand Incoterms, I highly suggest that you obtain a good understanding of the Incoterms rules and the obligations on the part of the buyer and the seller before you quote any price for a good, or you accept a price for goods, say you're procuring. It's important to understand what price with the Incoterm you're actually accepting, so that you understand your obligations. And here are the 10 categories of obligations on the screen. And then I just have a quick visual shorthand, which shows you the transfer of risk for all of the 11 Incoterms. No time to explain any of that, but our courses do a great job going into, like, really going in depth into what each Incoterm means. And then here you can see the Incoterms for any mode of transport. So those 7 Incoterms, and shows you where the handoff, where the product is delivered. And then this one here shows you, it's visual shorthand of the 4 waterway, sea or waterway modes of transport. Okay, required documents. So the documents will vary according to the type of goods and services being imported or exported, how they're being delivered, and the export and import regulations of each country. So here's basically a graphic which shows you the document flow for goods, and the role that customs brokers, the role that they play within this process, and then the role that the transport carriers, freight forwarders play as well, and the documentation that's required. And then our course on global value chain also touches on services, because our international our international trade program talks not only about the goods, the trade in goods, but we also cover goods and services. So best practices, we have in our textbook, we talk about, we have full guidelines for document compliance, because not complying can result in costly delays, can result in fines, can result in expenses, additional expenses. But we provided some partial guidelines. This is not an extensive list, but making sure that you're using the legal names of stakeholders, that you're using only properly registered names. Monetary values must be stated in the correct currency. Dates of departure, delivery, description and location, and description of goods are the same across all documents. So that was something that was mentioned last month about contracts, and making sure that all those terms in contracts are consistent throughout all documents. So this is the point where I'd like to hand it over to you, Marci, because when we're talking about best practices, I think there's no better time to introduce our guest speaker for today. So I am just going to read your bio. So Marci Kobe is a certified international trade professional, a customs broker, and a trade compliance expert. She is the executive director and founder of Clearsmith Customs Brokerage, which services small to medium-sized companies. She has 25 plus years of experience in customs brokerage and trade compliance. And she's been involved in Canadian International Trade Tribunal decisions and duty recovery worth thousands of dollars. One refund check alone was worth $65,000. Based in Calgary, Alberta, she has been a featured speaker at oil and gas symposiums, company lunch and learn programs, and workshops. And this is her words, she is a self-professed trade geek. So I am so excited to have you join us today, Marci. And
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thanks for having me. This is very exciting. Yeah, anytime I get to talk about importing and exporting and touch on Incoterms, I mean, this is my sweet spot. So thanks for having me. Yeah, so let's dive in. So as Laura mentioned, like there's so much, so many pieces to the puzzle of international trade. And so we're going to touch on a few things today. And again, this is just kind of a high level view of some of the things that may be required when importing and exporting. So slip to the next slide here. And it's not moving for me. Laura, could I trouble you to pull up the PowerPoint?
okay, it's not advancing.
Nope, it's not advancing, so something's wrong, but we'll just keep going. So when we're talking about importing and exporting, there are some basic understandings that we need to have, and some of the complexities that come along with it. So for example, you know, if you've got crayons that you're looking to import, usually that's not a big deal. Or if you're exporting crayons, it's pretty straightforward. But again, you have to know, as Laura mentioned, who you are selling to or who you're purchasing from. So if you are purchasing or selling to a group or a named individual who is blacklisted, then there could be problems, and there could be extra requirements by the government in order to make those transactions happen. So just keep that in mind. And again, like Laura said, you need to know who the legal entity is, who you're buying and selling to and from. The basic information that we do require for both import and export is who is the importer, who is the exporter. And this is clearly defined in the Incoterms that we use. Who is the consignee? Are they related? That's a big one that's coming into play now. One of the things that is happening right now is the governments are now encouraging entities to screen who they are, who they're selling to. And there are programs that you can have and can use, and a customs broker should have this in their system, where you can actually screen them and see if they are a questionable entity or if it is a questionable area that you're going to be importing and exporting to and from. You need to know what the goods are, where they're classified, and that's that HS code that I'm sure everybody is aware of. And it's important that you have that correct. If not, then that could create problems, because that's a code that drives everything, including any government requirements or certificates of origin that may be required. You know, it just comes up. It drives duty rates. It drives everything. So it's really important that you nail down the HS code correctly. And as Laura mentioned, like that was one of the ways we did duty recovery, was reclassifying goods because they were classified incorrectly upon import. Another big data element is where the goods are made. So that needs to be noted on any import or export documents. And just basic things like how many things are shipping and what's their worth. And again, in terms of compliance, if you've got serial numbers or RMA numbers or PO numbers that you need to track, that's also very helpful to put that on your documents. When is an export report required? So when we import goods into Canada, we all know that there needs to be an import declaration. When we export goods from Canada, we need to determine if an export report is required. When we're talking about exports, we need to look at what the value of the goods are and where they're going. If they are going into the US, generally speaking, the goods or the data that we share with the United States is sufficient enough, and a formal export report is not required. But if the goods are restricted, then we need to have an export report done, and that's done through what's called the CIRS system with Canada Customs. It's the Canadian Export Reporting System. Some of you might be familiar with that. If the goods are restricted, depending on where they're, if they are restricted, they do need to have an export report done, regardless of where they're going to, even if it's the US. If the goods are valued at less than $2,000 Canadian, they don't necessarily need to be reported. But if they are restricted, then they do need a formal report. If the goods are going to a restricted destination, then they will also, again, need an export report. And it's interesting because if the goods are of US origin and they are shipping from Canada outside of Canada or the US. So if you've got a product that's come into Canada from the United States, it's made in the US, and you're now maybe manufacturing it into something else, or you're just straight exporting it from Canada outside of Canada or the US, then you will need to do a export report regardless of value. So that's one of the rules that's been set out. And again, it's very important to be mindful of the timelines that we have to report goods as they're being exported. So any documents that need to be presented, these export reports need to be followed. We need to follow the timelines closely. So gone are the days where you can throw something on a truck or plane and just let it go. You need to now stop and make sure that you're following the reporting timelines with customs. Again, with exporting, as Laura alluded to, you need to make sure you know who you are exporting to, and if the parties are related. So again, having that the legal name of the entity is really important. You need to know when the goods are leaving. And one of the tricky things is are they actually leaving from a specific port that maybe they're being picked up in? So we're in Calgary, and most times, if goods are leaving via air, their last place of report is Calgary. But there are times where maybe they're being picked up in Calgary and they're moving to Vancouver or Montreal or Toronto to be furthered out of the country. So we need to know where the export port is. So it may not be an inland port. It may not be flying directly from a city, but it might be transferred to, say, Vancouver, and then from there off to the rest of the world. So it's important to identify that. You need to know why the goods are leaving Canada, and how they're leaving Canada. So the carrier information is very important. And that is all tied together with the bill of lading that's supplied by the carrier. So that when you do your export report, that bill of lading will be, or the airway bill number or whichever, will be on the export report, so that if customs needs to take a look at the goods, they can look at them before they're actually leaving, and they know when they're leaving, they know where they're leaving, and they have the information that's tied to it. When we're talking about export, the proof of report, this is so important. If you're in a situation where you are moving goods in and out of Canada that maybe could be returned for repair, or perhaps you're working with a trade show item, so you could send them out, but you need to have them returned after the trade show. Or maybe you've got something that's going out to be repaired and it's coming back after being repaired. So with that, it's really important that you keep track of your proof of export, so that when the goods are coming back into Canada, you have that proof of export, so you're able to declare that correctly on return to Canada. And it's so important to have that data set, and keep good records and keep good data when it comes to your imports and exports and what's going on. So when we do up our export documents for our clients, we are looking at, why is this leaving? And is it going to be coming back? Do we need to keep the proof of export on file, or have it readily available because it's going to be coming back in 2 weeks? Or, is there a serial number that we can put on there to help us track that particular unit? So those are things that we are looking at. And when we're talking about goods coming back to Canada, there's also tax implications. When we have them come back to Canada, they can be potentially imported GST and duty exempt. So we have to be able to prove that they actually left Canada to begin with. So that's why it's really important to keep those types of documents on hand as proof of export. And I've listed 3 that are pretty standard. So you've got your outgoing bill of lading showing that the goods left the country. You can use a U.S. consumption entry, for example, showing that the goods were actually cleared into the U.S. Or you can have your proof of report, your CIRS proof of report. That's your formal report that you would have done with Canada Customs. Again, Incoterms are so important, as Laura alluded to. Like, you need to know who's responsible for what. And if you don't know, it's going to create problems. And we're seeing this come up quite often now with the CARM portal this is the new rules for importing with Canada Customs with the CARM portal, where people are going, well, it used to be you could just clear it and get an import account and clear it and be done with it. Well, now you need to have a formal account with Canada Customs, which does take a little bit of time. So if you're having goods show up at the border and expecting them to clear, and you're maybe a non-resident importer, it may not happen. It could, and we've seen it cost people money because they aren't prepared once the goods hit the border. So in Marci's perfect world, you would have all that information settled and ready to go by the time the goods hit the border. You wouldn't leave it till the last minute. And again, it's so important to identify who's responsible for what. It's such a small thing, but it happens so often where we have people that start inquiring about importing, and we ask them, well, who's responsible for the importer? And they go, well, we didn't really talk about that. It's like, well, you just did a major transaction worth thousands of dollars, and you haven't figured out who's responsible for shipping, who's responsible for the import. And so there's all kinds of things that can create problems there. So always make sure you know who's responsible for what. And what happens if we don't comply? Well, with imports and exports, there's always penalties, potential penalties that can happen. And Customs has been beating the compliance drum for a number of years now, and they're expecting people to kind of self-comply and self-regulate. And if you don't, then there's these AMPS penalties that can happen, which are supposed to be non-punitive, and they encourage compliance, but they can be very costly. And these types of penalties will stay on your record for a number of years. And so you need to make sure that you're avoiding them as much as you can. And it just makes for a better audit if you're ever audited by the government, in terms of your imports and exports. It just makes it better if you can keep all your records clean and have them available. And you know, if you don't, there are problems that do come up. And I'll just give you one quick example. We had a client that had they were importing pipe fittings, and the pipe fittings that they declared them as this was the previous another broker that they were using. They were straight pipe fittings. And there were some that were straight and some that were curved, but they were importing with the HS code that was for straight pipe fittings. And Canada Customs came back and said, you know, you need to correct, or you need to be mindful that some of these need to be changed. The HS codes need to be changed for the curved pipe fittings. And somehow, and I'm not sure how this happened, but the broker did not make the changes, or the importer didn't advise them, or whatever. But what happened was Customs came back 6 months after they warned them and looked at their entries and had seen that they had not been compliant. And then they got irritated, and they told them they basically had to go back and change all of their entries for the past, I think it was 4 years or something like that. So they had to go through all of their entries and pull out all these curved pipe fittings and change all of the HS codes, which cost them a fair amount of money. And but they learned a lesson, and they switched to a better broker, and were able to get those corrected. So all those things happen. And you know, we say in our industry, it's not a matter of if you will get audited, it's a matter of when you will get audited. So it's really important to keep those all, you know, as best as you can, you know, clean and tidy and completely compliant.
Well, that was fantastic, Marci. Time flies when you're having fun. I see so many questions, so many questions. I have my own, but let's just dive into some of the questions. So it looks like, based on the number of questions we have, that we might go over the time. We will probably go over the half an hour mark. So I welcome everyone to stay on if you can. If not, like I mentioned, a recording of today's session will be sent to you via email. So let's just dive in. Okay, so we have one here that says, while required documentation and permits might vary based on product, what are the main required documents? For example, invoice, certificate of origin, bill of lading, packing list.
Yeah, those are the standard ones. And you're absolutely right. It's going to vary by where the goods are coming or going to. So there could be additional requirements coming into you know, coming into Canada from CFIA or any of the other government departments, right? So in terms of export, there could be certificates of origins that need, or sorry, yeah, certificates of origin that may need to be certified or notarized by the chamber or by you know, different organizations here in Canada. So, I mean, you're right. It absolutely depends on the product and where it's going. But yeah, the commercial invoice, the packing list, the bill of lading, those are the basics. Those are the kind of the nuts and bolts of what we need.
Okay, great. And then we had another question. Is there a way to identify which are the competent authorities like USDA, EPA, FDA that regulate a specific product? Is it possible to search by HS code? So,
That's a good question. Yes, I believe there would be. I know in Canada, there is a place where you can go and you can plug in an HS code, and it will tell you which of the OGD or other government departments that might have their hands in that product or may need some additional information. So there is a place where you can, and it's the, I think it's called the IID regulated products, but it's a document. It's actually an Excel document that you can search in
oh,
to see who might need extra information on the product.
oh, that's fantastic. That's great. Thank you. Um, Somebody's asking, how can we know if a company is blacklisted?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
So I know with our company, within our system, we've got a way to basically we kind of we search to see if any new entities that we enter in. So for example, if we've got a customer that is needing export documents done up for a company overseas, when we put that company into our system, there's a way we can screen it, and it will pull up any document or any other companies that might be similar, or maybe a country. If it's a red flag country, it'll flag that in our system so we can take a look at it and just verify, okay, is this, the same company, or is it different, or are the owners or the people that are involved with the company, are they on a blacklist somewhere? So that's the way we do it. There are ways to do it outside of our system. I believe it's paid subscriptions though. So yeah, good question. I'm not 100% sure where you might be able to get that information.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Somebody's asking if you can speak about what an ATA CarNet is and how it works.
Yes, I love carnets. Carnets are probably the most underutilized um, piece of kind of customs documents that are can be used. And carnets are great because basically they're like a passport for goods. And I believe there are about 55 countries that recognize carnets, and it allows for the free flow of products in and out of certain countries without the payment of duties and taxes. And carnets are great because you can use them for up to a year. And so, for example, if you're a photographer and you've got a camera equipment or things like that, you can actually document those pieces of equipment on a carnet with serial numbers and all that kind of good stuff, and use that when you go to different events, or if you're, when you're crossing borders, you can present it upon import, use it within that country, and present it upon export. So it just shows that, the goods are going in and out of countries and you're not having to pay for them. The downside is that you can't use them for consumable items. So if you're going to a trade show or something, you could use it for any of your products that you've got on your like your trade show booth or things like that. But if you've got consumable items, say if you're handing out pens or pencils or whatever, you can't put those on a carnet. So that's the downside. But yeah, they're a great tool to use if you've got products going in and out of different countries that are, again, that are not being changed. So you can't send something out on a carnet if it's going to be modified. So it's got to be the same coming back into Canada.
Oh, fantastic. That's
Mhm.
great. Thank you for explaining that.
Mhm.
Somebody, again, going back to if a company is blacklisted, someone's asking, could AI help us to know if a company is blacklisted? And they're asking you if you've tried to use AI to see if companies are blacklisted.
That's a really
Interesting.
good question. And there's probably something in there that can be used because we've got an internal system that we use. I myself have not really tried it. And again, AI, I would want to make sure that it's really solid in your parameters, what you're giving it, so that it feeds you back the correct information. Because if it turns out that the goods or that the people are blacklisted or the company is blacklisted, then you could end up with some situation that maybe you don't want to be in.
Right. Fantastic. Got a question here. We might about NAFTA, if there's a CUSMA revision to the NAFTA B228 regional value content questionnaire. Are you familiar with?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. That's probably a little deeper than
Yeah.
what I've got off the top of my head. I do know that NAFTA is no more. So you're looking at the CUSMA certificate of origin now. There could be revisions there. I'm not sure. You're probably talking about something in the annex, and I'm really good, but I don't have the annex memorized.
I don't think anybody would have it memorized. Maybe I can suggest, this is one of our CITPs, Marci, Peter Gray. So
Yeah,
maybe Peter, I can put you in contact with Marci, obviously another CITP, if that's okay with you, Marci.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
Okay, I love these questions, by the way. Thank you everyone for your engagement. Um, so again, going back to returns and proof of export, that's something you touched upon in the presentation. What happens if a product that is exported to be transformed and returns to Canada to continue a manufacturing process or integrated into a product to be finished in Canada? Can that also be re-imported with reduced taxes?
Yeah, there are different programs, and that would be called an assist. So yeah, there is things we can do for that. We've had that happen before where something is sent down to the US where it's transformed in some way or coated or whatever, and then it's been brought back. So yeah, definitely there is that element. And so there is the issue of you're not going to pay necessarily on the full value of the goods. You're going to pay on the coating or the whatever's happened to the goods there. So yeah, we call that an assist.
Excellent. Another question, may I ask how long I should keep records pertaining to import?
Yeah, great question. So yeah, imports, I believe it's 4 years plus the current year that you're in. Exports you need to keep for 6 years. So, doesn't hurt to just
Wow.
keep those on file. Yeah.
So can I ask you here just a practical question for you? So I just see there's a lot of record keeping, there's a lot of
Mhm.
documentation, a lot of filing, a lot of keeping up to date. Like how much does a customs broker or could a customs broker assist companies, especially if you're a smaller, medium-sized company, in managing all of this?
Yeah, great question. So, we would keep on file everything that you would have. So we can help out with that in terms of maintaining records. But keep in mind though, if customs is coming back and looking for something in your records, they're going to go back to the actual importer first.
Oh, yeah.
So, definitely we can assist, but ultimately it's the importer's responsibility to be able to present those documents.
Right. But I also think that it's important. This is my own opinion, but developing a relationship like with your customs broker, like having that long-term relationship, because it's almost like a customs broker is an external part of your company, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's great to have a great relationship with your broker. Things just go far better. And I know for my company, it's so much easier when you know kind of more about what your clients are doing, right? And you understand their business and you understand their products and you understand, what exactly they're trying to accomplish. Because then we can come alongside them and help them out as best as we can, and we can maybe come up with some ideas for, okay, how do we defer duty, or how do we maybe make this a bit easier for you. So we should be definitely a part of your supply chain solution, and even though we're a small part, we can make a big difference.
Oh, 100%, 100%. Because a lot of times it's the same with a lot of areas. Companies, you can't do it all, and again, you don't know what you don't know. So having a partner like a customs broker there to flag certain things that you may not have thought of before. So
Right, right.
excellent. Okay, back to the questions. They just keep coming, Marci.
Yes,
Don't go
all good,
anywhere.
all good, all good.
Can I request a customs ruling from the CBP before exporting goods to the USA?
So can you request a customs ruling on the US side? I believe there is a way for that to be done. Because I'm not licensed in the US, I can't confirm how you would do that. I know in Canada we're able to do that, and it's a good idea. to do that if you've got, products you're not sure about, or that are maybe bleeding edge technology that you're not sure where they should be classified. So it is a good idea. I would caution you, though, that on the Canadian side, it does sometimes take a while to get those rulings back. So if you're thinking it's going to happen in a week, it's probably not. So again, it goes back to Marci's perfect world that, if you have a question on that, you've got like a few months to kind of get that done and accomplished and settled.
Excellent, excellent. I like that, Marci's perfect world. How do customs brokers feel about importing household goods or personal effects into Canada? Or is this something that you avoid because of complexities or complications?
Yeah, great question. Ultimately, it's a business decision with the broker. For our company, we have opted to not delve into personal effects simply because most of the time we don't know who the people are. We don't know if they've got 20 pounds of cocaine in with their, socks and underwear that they're importing, right? So it's, and if there is that kind of situation, then we would be liable for that. So it is very complex, and it really depends on the broker. But as a general rule, we tend to not clear personal effects.
Right. I could see that for sure.
Mhm.
And we've got one last question before we let everyone get on with their day. So what documents are required for rejected Canadian origin goods coming back to Canada? Like they give an example like lentils. So
So I'm kind of getting the impression that the goods were exported and then they were rejected at the destination and now they're coming back. So I would say the required documentation, because you would probably want to clear those as Canadian goods returning, or you may not. Yeah, you'd probably clear them as Canadian goods returning. So you would need the outgoing bill of lading or the outgoing CIRS report in order to bring those back into Canada. I think that's what they're asking.
right, right. Well, I can't thank you enough. Great, and everyone for attending. Marci, for your high level. I know it's so difficult in such a short period of time, but you really did highlight certain areas, talk about all the exceptions and the importance of getting things right and classifying goods. And everybody for your questions. I could see that we probably wouldn't have enough time if we doubled our time today, but I thank you, Marci, for your time and your expertise. That's wonderful.
My
ClearSmith
pleasure.
International, if anybody wants to reach out to Marci directly. And I hope everyone comes back next month. Like I said, our Fit Live Learning series happens on the last Tuesday of every month at the same time. So next month it'll be a different topic, a topic that's of interest to our community. So I hope to see you next month. And thanks again, everyone, for attending. And Marci, thank you for answering those questions because I would not have been able to answer.
You're most welcome. My pleasure.
Have a great day, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.